monsters. Thanks for finding us on this fine Friday. Of course, every Friday is a fine Friday when we spend it together, chatting about the subject that unites us all, murder. If you don't know us already, allow us to introduce ourselves. I'm Angelina, and I'm here with my sinister sister, Aurora. How are things on your end, friend?
Hey, monsters. I'm good. I have just finished for my husband his fourth or third season of the TV show he's been working on for the past 9 months. They just wrapped on Saturday,
Awesome.
and we have a little bit of freedom. So we're taking a road trip around Spain. So things are looking up. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Making up for a busy but more boring summer, I guess, and doing all of your cool adventures now.
Yes. It feels
Which
good
is a
to
good
have
time to do
an
'em.
adventure.
Good weather.
Absolutely. Yes. So if you're here listening to today's episode, you're already an honorary monster. But if you want to make it official and join the MMN commune for real, head over to patreon.com/MurderMurder.news and pledge any amount you can spare to show your support. In return, we'll name one of our baby goats in your honor. You'll get your own cool title like Deacon or Grandmaster of Goats. And of course, you'll have exclusive access to our special Patreon-only video episodes, which are released every month. We just released our latest Patreon special, which was about people who fake their own deaths. It's a phenomena called pseudocide. Why do people fake their own deaths? And how do they do it? How often do they get caught? Hear all the answers to your burning questions about pseudocide by following us on Patreon.
Let's take a look at some of the true crime stories that made headlines this week. On Saturday morning, the body of 21-year-old Felicia Jones was found in Riverview Park in Jacksonville, Florida. Felicia, who is known as Fifi, was 9 months pregnant and was due on October 8th. She was discovered unresponsive by a person walking in the park at 6:30 a.m. Her unborn baby did not survive, and police are treating her death as suspicious and suspect foul play. If you have any information about her death, we encourage you to call the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office at 904-630-0500.
Also in headlines this week, 4 students from Dunmore High School in Pennsylvania have been accused of planning an attack on their school. This is super gross, but inspired by the Columbine massacre.
Ugh.
One of the teens' mothers said she was storing, quote, a Molotov cocktail, components for bombs, writing on how to make bombs, and handwritten list of guns, ammunition, and tactile gear at her home.
Wow.
So super, super creepy and terrible. And 2 of the teens are being tried as adults and 2 will be tried as juveniles. So we'll keep you updated as to what goes on with those charges.
Now, before we get into our story, we just want to say that while our tone is light in the intro, we do take the topics we're discussing very seriously. We are best buds and we love chatting together every week and turning it into a podcast. We want to share that passion with you and to create a vibe where all of you feel like our best buds too. We joke about us friends forming a cult or commune, but that's not to diminish the severity of actual cult activity, which we do occasionally talk about in our weekly stories. We feel it's important to open up and talk about even the darkest aspects of humanity and the downright scary things that come up in the news. But we want to make it clear that our intention is never to sensationalize, and we always try to deliver these stories with respect to all parties involved or affected by the crimes we discuss.
We always post our sources in the episode description, so you can do some digging on your own if a story we present piques your interest. But you should know that if you ever feel we get it wrong, either in our tone or in the details of the case, we want to hear about it. We are more than happy to make a correction or give an update on a case we've discussed in previous episodes. So feel free to reach out to us at murdermurdernews@gmail.com. Some specific trigger warnings for this episode include descriptions of graphic torture and substance abuse. So if any of these things are particularly sensitive for you, you may want to skip this one and listen to one of our other episodes instead. So we're going to take a small break from our normal true crime stories to cover a missing person case that really needs your attention. In the past couple of weeks, I think it's really hitting everyone that this true crime community is so powerful for helping get the word out about missing persons and help keep their names and faces in the media. We are such an important tool for frustrated families that want answers about their missing loved ones. We found out about missing person Derek Ritz, who actually preferred to go by the name Ritzy, so that's what we'll call him from here on out. We found out about him from a friend who is desperate for answers. Ritzy was 51 years old when he disappeared from Sebringville, Ontario, sometime on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day in 2017. We know that a lot of you listeners are from Ontario, so there's always a chance that you or someone you know could have seen or heard something about this night, so we're counting on you to help if you can. Friends of Ritzy believe the police did not take his disappearance seriously because he had a substance abuse disorder, which unfairly made him a low priority for police. And let's be honest, society as a whole often treats people who struggle with addiction like they don't matter. For that reason, we want to start off talking about who Ritzy was and what he meant to his friends, because there's so many of them. One of his friends, Shelley Smith, runs a Facebook group to help fight for answers to what really happened. And that group has almost 900 members, many of which seem to have known him personally.
We actually chatted with the amazing and persistent Shelley about why she started the group after seeing an emotional post about his disappearance from their mutual friend, Phil.
I knew Ritzy mainly through people in Stratford. We weren't really friends, but everybody here knows everybody. So I kind of got involved in his case when he first went missing. My friend Phil, who was like his brother, said he was missing. I said, we'll make a group for him. So we made a group. We let it sit for a bit. And then a month later, we opened up the group, right? But I didn't really know Ritzy well. We'd say hi in passing, but that's about it. But I'm here because this is the right thing to do and nobody else was stepping forward.
So we have this guy that the police don't seem to think is worth investigating, but he seems to have so many friends willing to fight for answers. He matters to them. So we decided we needed to get to know Ritzy a little bit better, and Shelley helped us make a request in the group for members to share little memories of what he was like, and wow, did we get a big response. We had over 60 people respond. So here's what they had to say. First, Shelley shared that the guy was definitely a bit quirky and had a big heart.
He was a flat earther. He believed in aliens. And from a lot of people that I've talked to in the group that have shared stories, he helped a lot of people out, mostly single mothers and stuff like that. He would help them out with money when they needed it and stuff like that. So a lot of people speak very fondly of him, even though he had his issues.
We also chatted with his friend Jeff, who shared some stories about how the two first met and a little insight into the world of Ritzy.
In 1984, I moved back. Okay, so I quit school when I was 15. In 1984, I moved back home to Stratford, and I was living with my mother as I went to pursue a GED. And part of my rent situation with my mother was to agree to tear down an 1884 living room that she was going to have rebuilt and remodeled. And so I went downtown to the Beaver Lumber in Stratford, and I was in no hurry to get back home at the thought of having to do all this horrific work. And so I stopped at this restaurant, the Palm, and there was a guy sitting at a stool. I was about maybe 2 or 3 stools down, ordered a beer. It turned out to be the same beer as this fella. And he goes, "All right, Black Label." And so we just started talking, and he said, "Well, what do you have to do today, man?" And I said, "Oh, I got this terrible job I got to do with my mother, for my mother." And he says, "Well, do you need some help?" And I said, "Are you kidding?" I said, "I'll buy the beer, man." And he goes, you buy a 12-pack of labels and I'm in. And just like that, and we went to my mom's place, and we were there for 5 or 6 hours, tearing down old black and plaster and shitty paper insulation and stuff like that. It was just a nightmare. Dirty 100-year-old, literally 100-year-old mess. And we just sort of clicked our last beer and sat outside and had a smoke. And Derek walked away. He said, "I'll see you at the Palm." And that was it. Just that was it. That didn't ask for anything. Just wanted somebody to hang out with and something to do, and just sweet. And we laughed, and he walked away so dirty, I can't believe it. Never asked a thing. And of course, the next time I saw him, we just began to be really good buddies. And he found his way into. There was a group of us that used to hang up there, and we were called the Black Label Crew. And and we would, just we had a certain spot that we'd sit at the bar, and he just became part of it. And when he showed up, now I don't know, this is interesting because he's always been known as Ritzy. His name is Derek Ritz, of course, and but somehow we knew him as Dick, and or at least I did. And when he'd come into the bar, everybody go Dick, just like people would cheer Norm coming into Cheers, right? And so Dick became a part of the crew, and not full time. He had his own group of friends. And anyway, funny man. And so a couple silly stories, and I don't know which sort of chronologically, but the one, the next funniest one, or the funniest one, I think, was one time we were over in Dave Fisher's backyard. We had a big fire going, and it was just starting to come dusk, and I don't know, there might have been 8 or 10 of us there already, just sitting around the fire and getting high and having fun and drinking beer. And all of a sudden this yellow bike comes flying into the yard, and Dick's got this brand new 18 gear mountain bike, and he just comes up and just does like a sideways brake torque thing and kicking up the sod, and Dave's just shaking his head, Derek, and so he goes, "Oh fuck, this looks like a riot, man." He goes, "I'll go grab a 12-pack, I'll be right back." And he takes off, and he goes right through Dave's brand new garden. Dave goes, "No, not through the garden." Dick stops with the brakes, and both digs up half the garden, and he just goes, "Don't worry about it, man. This thing will go through anything." Oh God, that guy was so funny, and it was like he had no sense for it, right? He was just, "Don't worry about me. Don't worry about the bike."
And we want to share some of the memories his friend shared with us in his Facebook group. Ashley commented that he was the kind of person who would give you the shirt off his back. He loved guitars, and he believed in aliens. He always had an ear open when someone needed to vent. Bonnie said Ritzy was handsome, charming, and had the kind of smile that would make you fall in love. Janice mentioned that when they were growing up, there wasn't much to do, so they would play pinball, and Ritzy was always drawing on a pencil case or in a yearbook. She said he always had everyone's back. Darlene said that she had met him through her brother years ago, and he was so handsome, funny, and genuine. They played pool many times, and if all he had was $5 in his pocket, he would buy you a drink first. Every girl she knew had a secret crush on him. Friends still flood his Facebook wall with birthday wishes, alien memes, and wishes, hoping that he is someday found.
He was clearly very loved and seemed to get along with everyone, but that friendliness had led him down a path of connecting with some potentially dangerous people. We know that he really loved music and art and was really creative. He was a good-looking guy who would give you his last dollar if you needed it. He also had an ex-wife and a son whom he had not recently been in contact with because his friends are all very open about his struggle with substances. He'd been living his life jumping from friend's couch to friend's couch and even occasionally sleeping on the street. He had a hard life, but from the sounds of it, he didn't let that change his outgoing, caring personality. The story of what happened to Ritzy is largely based on word of mouth and rumors because, as we mentioned, the police seemingly haven't touched his case since 2017. Those closest to him believe he was murdered and that the people who murdered him were his friends. They believe he likely died in an incredibly graphic way and that many in the community know what happened and have not spoken up for their friend. And without pressure from his friends to solve this case, his story simply isn't being told by the police or by news outlets.
We were contacted by Shelley because she's a friend of fellow warrior Cindy Hall, who you might remember is fighting for justice for Lisa Marie Young, and she was on our show a couple weeks ago. Our mission for Ritzy is to help piece together what likely happened to him, why it was done, and to see if any of the rumors floating around hold any weight. As well, we want to try to convince you, dear listener, if you know what happened, to come forward and speak up for your friend. The articles that we've read were really vague, but it sounded like Ritzy had bounced around to a couple of New Year's Eve parties and had maybe gotten into a car around 3 a.m. None of this seems to have been confirmed, and if he was just partying on New Year's Eve, why would anyone hurt him? In order to paint a picture of what really happened, we chatted with private investigator Carrie, who Shelley describes as her emotional support investigator. I can't imagine a better way to describe Carrie. Here's a little info about who she is and how she found herself volunteering to help get answers.
My background is obviously an investigation and has been that for many, many years. My parents worked overseas for my entire life, and we moved from country to country in Latin America. And through education, through exposure, through roles that I've played there, have been exposed to, seeing, and participating in the fight against human trafficking, against corruption in Latin America, missing children, women who are murdered by their husbands and forgotten. And then I've moved on in my career and really wanted to play a strong role in two areas: finding birth families for adoptees, which I am one, and also searching for the lost. And what I mean by lost are not only missing, but they're the ones who have been forgotten. Forgotten by police agencies, forgotten by communities, forgotten by others because they were deemed not important. I joined an organization called Please Bring Me Home about 2 years ago, and they're a nonprofit organization who do exactly that. They work on cold cases. I was given 3 cases right out of the bat. One of them was Ritzy's. And so I have been working on this case for about a year and 3 months or so. And convenient because it's out of Stratford, which is only about a half-hour drive from me. So that's what's led me to Ritzy's case in a nutshell.
As we mentioned, the story of the night Ritzy went missing is really vague and mostly based on rumors, many of which are conflicting rumors. Carrie helped us piece together what Ritzy had been up to in the months leading up to the night he disappeared.
This is where I guess the fog around Ritzy's disappearance starts, sadly, at the onset. Based on Ritzy's lifestyle, he didn't have any intimate connections with anyone, such as a mother or father who said, Ritzy didn't show up tonight, where it's not like his character. So many of the theories state that from the 24th of December of 2016 till about the 7th of January of 2017, it's very foggy as to when Ritzy actually disappeared. He wasn't reported until into the second week of January. So when did he actually go missing? And as we retrace some of those steps and look at witness accounts or rumors, which there's plenty of in this case, we're really foggy into what happened. What we do know is a few months prior to December, so the assumption is around October of 2016, due to an employment settlement through court, Ritzy came into some money. We don't know the sum of money, but for him, it was a lot of money. Unfortunately, Ritzy made it known to others in his circle who mainly participated in the drug activity in Stratford. So their lifestyle was one of looking for money, purchasing drugs or alcohol, then looking for money again. So the theories run that Ritzy went missing due to the fact that people knew he had money. They tried to get it out of him. He wouldn't give it to them. And so they beat him up and roughed him up. When? We don't know. Somewhere in that time. We're claiming his date of disappearance to be January 1st of 2017.
If we assume that the information Carrie has received is correct, it sounds like Derek had fallen into a bad crowd that was willing to kill him in order to steal the money he had received from a work settlement. Unfortunately, the timeline of when he was last seen is a little unclear since he did likely disappear on the holidays when I think a lot of people are kind of checked out, and he didn't have close friends or family keeping tabs on him at the time. Carrie provided a little more detailed information about what witnesses have said happened on New Year's Eve, which could have been the last night he was seen.
As I said, there's many theories or rumors around what happened prior to his disappearance. One is that Ritzy was going around between Christmas and New Year's to his friends' houses, going in and demanding alcohol from them. He was riding around in a vehicle with 2 other gentlemen. The 2 other gentlemen are well known in the community for being sort of the bullies in the meth community. They were in the car. They would send Ritzy in. Ritzy would get alcohol and bring it out to the vehicle. People say that he came to 2 different houses. Then after that, they never saw him again. One of the other theories is that Ritzy was living in a house on Niall Street in Stratford, and he had a room there. He was living with 2 roommates at the time. And there was a discussion on New Year's Eve. There was a celebration, but it turned into a discussion over an old girlfriend. The male in the residence proceeded to beat Ritzy up. They beat him quite severely. And the allegations are that once he was beat up, he was taken out of that house on Niall Street, put into a 4-door Honda Accord, assuming it's a goldish color. He was put into the trunk of that vehicle. Then from that point, he was taken to a farm. And that is where the next steps occurred with what we believe ended Ritzy's life. But as far as what happened that night, those are the 2 scenarios around what we believe happened.
As we keep mentioning, there are a lot of rumors going around about what actually happened the night friends believe Ritzy was murdered. And most of these rumors implicate the same people who are known as bullies in the meth community in Stratford. We will not name names since the police have never declared these people as persons of interest, which is largely because they seemingly haven't made any progress in this case since 2017. Carrie has been working with the police to try to get answers for her investigation, and here's where the investigation currently stands.
This is one reason why we do what we do. And I'm sure a huge part that motivates MurderMurder.news as well is the fact that there is a police investigation at the onset. In this situation, it was the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police, which presided over Sebringville, which is where Ritzy had an address, what we believe was just to receive mail. He didn't reside at that address. But because he was reported missing, they went to the address on record. They did a search at a residence there that was a friend of Ritzy's. Allegedly, they recovered some clothes. The rumors are that the clothes were planted by those who ended Ritzy's life. The OPP investigation ended there, and it was handed over to Stratford Police Department. Stratford Police Department, when I got onto the case, there was a detective assigned to it. I reached out to him. They had done nothing on it. He hadn't had really an opportunity, I guess, to review the reports from the OPP. However, we had 2 discussions about the case. As you know, what happens in PD, there's promotions and there's movement. And shortly after I had interacted with that detective, he was promoted and another detective came onto the case. I'll be honest with you, in dealing with police in many cases in different countries, these 2 officers were very nice. They were very approachable, willing to chat with, share their ideas about. Well, it was more of a one-way relationship, pretty much where I shared and they cared. However, they were open to talk about it, open to what I had to hear. The second investigator, after our first meeting, he said, at the end, he said, "Wow, Carrie, you have reinvigorated a passion for this case for me." He said, "I'd seen it, but now I'm passionate about it." He said, "I'm going away on a course and I'm going to use Ritzy's case as sort of a case study to use on different methodologies to try to uncover evidence in this case." I was thrilled. I'm like, "You go, take it, run with it." And then I haven't heard from him since then, which is sad. And that would have been about 8 months ago. So I have messaged him. I told him we were doing a search at one of the farms that we suspected activity at. I want to ensure that he knows what we're doing at all times. And he was very good about that. He said, "Absolutely, go for it. Let me know if you need anything." That's the last I'd heard from him. So they are aware, but there's no active involvement. They believe that, and I don't want to speak for them, but they shared a statement on Shelley Smith's Ritzy Facebook profile, and it shared they have no new evidence which would lead them in any direction in this case. And that's fair. That's fair. I understand that. But that's why we dig. And that's why we keep going to uncover the evidence. So that's pretty much their involvement to date.
We're going to get into some of the rumors about what could have happened to Ritzy. But we do want to warn you, they're very graphic and disturbing. We think it's important to touch on these because out of all the people we talked with about Ritzy, they all knew about these rumors, and it seems there could be some truth to them. And if Ritzy really did die in such a horrific way, the men who did this to him need to be brought to justice, and we have to stop them from doing this to anyone else. Shelley shared some of the horrific theories with us.
There's been some rumors that he was put into an acid bath. There's also some rumors that he was hung from rafters, but then there was other rumors that he was put through a wood chipper. So I don't know of the truth to those rumors, but those are what come out early on.
That sounds almost too much like a horror movie to be true, but unfortunately, Carrie believes there could be some truth to this.
There was allegations that once Ritzy was hurt severely at the home on Niles Street, that they threw him in the back of the Accord and then they didn't know what to do with his body. One of the individuals who's a big, I'm trying to find the right word for him. Many are terrified of this man in Stratford. He would be sort of, one of the head gangsters there, if you could say it, but there isn't a cartel happening in Stratford of what we would assume it to be. However, this gentleman was called by the individual who beat Ritzy up that night. And he was told by the one who assaulted Ritzy, hey, I know you have some issues with Ritzy. I know you have some stuff you want to deal with this guy. Do you want to come finish him off? So this gentleman apparently met up with them. And what we're trying to determine is where did the finish him off occur? And then how is the disposal of the remains, if that in fact is what we're looking for? One of the locations is off of a main street in Stratford. And it was sort of, even 3 years ago, it was more remote than it is today. And behind a house there that many went to do drugs, it was part of that community where they would chill and do meth at this house. Behind it at that time were two quarries or stone pits, rock pits. They were emptied at that time. There was water in both of them, but they were abandoned essentially. One of them, the larger quarry, is groomed beautifully. It has almost been made into a pond. The second quarry behind is very rocky. The landowner has in fact pushed some farmland into the quarry. Some of the theories are very, very graphic. And one of them is, of course, I've shared with you the one about the ponds where possibly he was disposed there. But one of the ones that just haunts me and is continually resurfacing through conversations I have is that Ritzy was taken to a farm. And this farm was out past Avonton. And we went to this farm where allegedly they made meth. They would sit around. It was called the meth house. And they would chill there. And the witness accounts, or one witness account I have, is that they took Ritzy's body out there. There's a large wood chipper on the property that the farmer had, and that still alive, Ritzy was put into the wood chipper and his body was destroyed in that manner. And that's how his life was taken. So that is horribly graphic and horribly sad. But we have to be aware that that is one of the points that comes up repetitively. But the ones I've shared with you are what I believe have some component of truth. I do believe that he was hurt badly. I really do. I do believe that we have some common people involved in each step of Ritzy's life. And I believe that other rumors, as albeit some I'd be able to work through and discount, there's still pieces of that come back and continue to build the thread for these three scenarios that we have: the ponds and the two farms.
We did receive information on Facebook that Ritzy had reached out to a friend by text asking for a gun because he believed he was being stalked. This definitely seemed like it could be a potential lead, but Carrie believes this was likely unrelated to his disappearance.
There are, I probably would assume, 200 to 300 of those ideas that have been shared, but very difficult to trace back. So Ritzy absolutely went from house to house. It depended what area he was in, what time of night it was, where he stayed. He would stay on the Nile Street address. He would stay in Sebringville. He would just crash downtown under the bridge in Stratford. So he was also very paranoid. He suffered from paranoia. And he would share different thoughts, different things that were happening. And since he came into that money, he was definitely had an accelerated sense of paranoia that they were coming after him, that he needed to be protected. But my understanding of his state of mind prior to his disappearance was he was absolutely terrified. Absolutely terrified. I don't know if it was due to threats of his life or was it due to the money being taken. But the gentleman that he was riding in the car with the nights prior to get alcohol from different homes, they weren't nice. They aren't nice guys. So it's very probable that he was looking for protection of some kind. But there was never any evidence of it in either the Sebringville home search nor the Nile Street search. Now, interesting, if I may, the Nile Street house where the fight occurred and Ritzy had a room at, in April of that same year, when the police did a search of the Sebringville house, that same day, is my understanding, that Nile Street address in Ritzy's home, where Ritzy stayed, had a fire the exact same day, and the fire was in Ritzy's old room. So when I believe when they, in quotes, heard that there was the OPP were searching at the one residence, as soon as word got out, had a fire. And interesting to carry the fire theory or the fire theme through is one of the farms that has been in question. That barn burned down shortly after Ritzy disappeared as well.
Again, we aren't going to name names about the people who likely murdered Ritzy, but they are all bad news and have all been in and out of jail. They've been arrested for some pretty major drug charges, robbery, and even a police standoff. And of course, there's also rumors about them beating up others in the community. And if they really did beat, torture, and murder a friend of theirs over money, we need to make sure these guys can't do this to anyone else. Where does Ritzy's case stand now? If this case is solved, it'll likely be from someone who knows something coming forward or from evidence obtained by Carrie and her investigation. Our new emotional support investigator is making progress in her investigation and has organized 3 upcoming search parties, which we believe will result in DNA evidence proving he was in fact murdered. The searches are coming up soon, so we will provide you all with updated results on that search in an upcoming episode. We think Carrie is getting close to solving this, and if someone you know was involved in his killing, now is the time to come forward and try to get yourself a plea deal. Now's the time to get justice for your friend who would have given you the shirt off his back. Every piece of information, no matter how small, is important.
And here's what you can do to help Carrie in her investigation.
Just the fact that people are listening to these podcasts demonstrate that they care. That they have an interest, that regardless of what these individuals did in their life, regardless what choices they made, they're one of us, right? They're a brother, they're a sister, they're a son. So I appreciate the compassion and care to listen. Secondly, spread the word. Talk about Ritzy. Talk about those in your community who have gone missing, but no one talks about it anymore. They lived on the street, but that doesn't matter. You know, why are the ones with social prestige getting the limelight when they go missing? Not that I denounce that. I think it's phenomenal, but I also think everyone deserves that limelight. And the other point would be contact us. Contact us at Please Bring Me Home. We would love to hear any accounts, any thoughts you may have. We are open. None of us are so perfect that we don't need someone to come in and say, hey, you're looking the wrong way. I love it. I think it takes a whole village of us coming together, everyone with a different approach to things, different thought process. And we can all lay it on the table and accomplish things together. So I appreciate it greatly.
And Shelley, who has been fighting so tirelessly for Ritzy, wants to encourage you to be brave and stand up for your friend.
What they can do is they can go to the group, Finding Ritzy, quotations Derek Ritz, and they can share his posts or even share stories of Ritzy. If you know of any information, call Please Bring Me Home. It's 226-702-2728 or pleasebringmehome.com. You can leave an anonymous tip. You do not have to give your name. So if you know something, call in anonymously. Just let us find them. I think people are afraid of these people. I think they're afraid to come forward because of the rumors and the stuff that these people have done around the city. They've got a high criminal activity. They've been beating people up for years. So I think people are afraid. But I've been doing this for 4 years, and I'm still here. And I'm still his voice, and I will always be his voice. Don't be afraid to come forward. If you know something, say something.
We want to encourage you to join Ritzy's Facebook group, Finding Ritzy, Derek Ritz, which we will link to in our show notes. And we encourage you to call Please Bring Me Home, where you can leave an anonymous or a non-anonymous tip anytime. Help get the word out about Ritzy's disappearance by sharing this episode and just by keeping his name alive. It helps to share all of your memories about the time he crashed at your house or bought you a beer. Let's all work together to bring Ritzy home. So in terms of television, I haven't seen anything new at all this week. I'm sort of in a spooky Halloween horror mode, so I've been dipping into some classic horror, but certainly nothing that you've never seen before. I reposted a little guide on the MurderMurder.news Facebook group, though, that someone else created, which was listing a bunch of spooky films and which platforms you can stream them on, just to make your festive Halloween viewing a little easier. But I kind of feel like I could one-up that poster. I think maybe I'll create my own and put it on MurderMurder.news. So if you guys want to check out there in the coming days, I'll post a more exhaustive guide that lists even more streaming platforms and just like where you can find any spooky content that you want to add into your movie nights or whatever you're doing this October to be festive. I have like an Amazon Fire Stick as well. I don't know if a lot of other people do, but there's some freebie apps on there that are like really weird and horror style movies. And through that, I actually did watch one really weird thing that probably none of you have seen before. It's called The Happiness of the Catacuries. Have you heard of this? No. Have you heard of the director? I think you'd pronounce his name Takashi Miike. He did like Ishi the Killer. It's like kind of like gory, but like really well done horror movie. And like he did Audition as well, which is another of those. So I assumed that he was just sort of like this horror kind of director. But this movie that I came across, The Happiness of the Catacuries, it's like the sound of music mixed with like a weird ghosty mystery mixed with like a horror because there's like some gore, but there's also some weird trippy claymation shit. It's just really the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. It's like the story is about this family who they start a motel or like an inn together, and they put everything into it, and it's not going very well. And then when it finally starts going well, all of the people that are staying with them wind up dying, and they wind up trying to hide the bodies and stuff. But as all this is going on, like it's really a like melodrama meets musical. So it's just absolutely the weirdest thing I've seen in a while. But what about you? Have you been watching anything weird?
I I feel like I did watch a bunch of stuff this week, but mostly it was like finishing up shows we've been watching. Like I finished Nine Perfect Strangers and such.
I wish we could touch on these again, but I feel like unless we know sort of that all of you are on board, then we don't want to really put any spoilers. Yeah.
But I did watch something really fun from the 90s, and it's not quite true crimey, except for there's like a con artist in it played by Goldie Hawn. It's called House Sitter. And I think it came out like in 1992 or something. And it's Goldie Hawn and Steve Martin. And I was kind of feeling the Steve Martin vibe after getting so into Only Murders in the Building. And like in it, he's an architect who meets Goldie Hawn's character like she's like catering an event that he's at. And she finds out that he has built a house for this woman he was going to marry who ended up like leaving him, and the house is just sitting empty. So Goldie Hawn like ups and moves herself into this house and is telling everybody in town that she's like married to Steve Martin's character, and it just kind of spirals out of control. But like the woman, like the lies she makes up like to kind of like skate around things, it's just so beautiful and flawless. Like it's just such a pleasure watching Goldie Hawn in this role. And it's like, I wish I was good at lying. She's so amazing. Like
actually, that's excellent. And I do want to see this now. I think I'm going to watch this.
It's really good.
But I don't wish I was good at lying. I mean, I don't know. I sort of do sometimes, but then I'm sure I've mentioned a few times this documentary that I watched on lying a few years ago, which was really blew my mind. But it's like, if you're really good at lying, first of all, you start to believe your own lies. And second of all, like you don't start having the physical responses that you're supposed to have to being dishonest or like hurting people and stuff. So you start to, it becomes easier and easier to do. Basically, it's a slippery slope, and you become kind of a bad person. So
that makes total sense. Like she definitely cannot help herself in this movie. Like it was done in a very realistic way, but it's just like
lies are one of those things where you can see how it can just spiral out of control, and you're like, oof. But like I do find that very entertaining, especially in a fictional movie. So
especially coming from Goldie Hawn, it was just like so damn adorable and charming. Like she's just such a delight to watch. I wish she was still in everything.
Excellent. Yeah. Oh, totally. So I guess that's it for TV.
Yeah, it's been a busy week. And, most of my week this week was just feeling sorry for myself because I was so hungry being in a tiny town as a vegan, not able to eat anything. And I spent most of my time sending messages to people so they would feel sorry for me. And I was surviving.
Aww.
I was surviving.
Like
I was absorbing their sympathy.
Yeah.
Like what's in What We Do in the Shadows? There's like an energy vampire, and then there's like the girl that's like an emotional vampire that feeds on people's emotions. I was like, I was like a pity vampire. I was just like, please feel sorry for me. I'm hungry all the time.
Well, as long as it helped, I mean. Then I guess it was worth it.
I'm not sure that it did, but it sure felt nice.
Oh, well, it was something to do. Anyways.
I was so hungry.
I have a minor update on my squirrel friend situation. I've been trying to become the most Snow White that I can be, of course, and make friends with every animal in my neighborhood. So my squirrel friend that I made who will eat peanuts out of my hand and hang out with me has started climbing onto my lap and sitting on my lap, which is amazing. And she also has like a baby who's like kind of like a grown-up squirrel, but like maybe like a teenage squirrel or like a sort of grown-up squirrel. But like, I don't know if he's like the only one that survived or if he's like the runt that still hangs out with her. But she started bringing him around too. And he'll eat peanuts out of my hand as well and like touch my leg and stuff and like hang out there. So now I have 2 squirrel buddies. I'm going to amass a whole, gang, a whole animal gang. And I'll keep you updated.
I am so jealous. Please, we'll post a picture on Instagram of Angelina and her new squirrel family for sure.
Yes.
And also your Halloween costume should obviously be Snow White.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Hello. I've never even done that.
Done.
Like, that's very easy. I'm doing it.
Done.
Yeah, there we go.
It's so cute. It's so classic.
And I'll try to get a picture in my Halloween costume with my squirrel.
Yes. Oh, my God. Yes. I love this for you.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, I guess that's enough murder for one week. If you disagree and you actually require more murder, then of course you can always find us on MurderMurder.news for the latest breaking true crime news articles every day of the week.
You can find us on Instagram at MurderMurder.news, where the Halloweeny memes are flowing. On Twitter at MurderNews. On TikTok at MurderMurder.news, where we posted about the murder of Tong Xiao, which took place almost exactly 7 years ago. We also mentioned missing geologist Daniel Robinson, who could really use your attention. You can find our page on Facebook, which is also, if you just look up Murder Murder News, where we recently posted a list of the best fall and Halloween goodies you can buy online made by Indigenous makers, which is so important to support their shops right now with everything that's been going on in Canada with finding the poor children that did not survive residential schools. So a lot of those organizations are actually donating proceeds to residential school survivors, and some of them are also making things as survivors of residential schools.
And don't forget, we also have a group on Facebook that you can join where you can stay in the loop about upcoming Halloween party plans. And of course, our book club, which meets every month on Zoom. We're still working on the new Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, and you still have time to read it before our next meeting on Sunday, October 10th. Thanks again for joining us. Have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, monsters.
Bye.